If you are a denizen of the internet like me, or just have access to any medium of information, coming across political news is an everyday occurrence. Reports and articles on politicians, presidents, would-be presidents, political scandals, and political upheavals cram our newspapers daily, gets shared on Reddit and climbs to the front page, gets tweeted on Twitter, and starts legendary comment wars on YouTube and Facebook, which, unfortunately, I expect to happen for the comment section of this video as well. Given the events that are soon to happen, or has already happened, the question, what makes a good leader, is often thrown around in university lounges, Reddit posts, and also on Google by prospective entrepreneurs and politicians who wish to replicate the success of their idols. But frankly speaking, the question, what makes a good leader, is actually very vague. What do people mean when they carelessly throw around the term good leader? Is a good leader someone who would fulfill the citizens' every wish and desire? Is a good leader someone who does not commit evil during their term? Is a good leader someone who can build powerful political empires, suppress opposition, and maintain their positions in which the word good is simply a description of their aptitude and skill? Is a good leader someone who shows others how something is done instead of shouting incomprehensible commands from their office? I mean, depending on who you ask, their definition of good leader may differ significantly. Trying to answer what makes a good leader for every single definition of good leader is a spectacularly futile exercise for a 6-minute video, so we'll simply go with what other philosophers have thought about this question, including the old famous Niccolo Machiavelli. Machiavelli's The Prince, the work that he is remembered for, belongs to the Mirrors for Princes genre, which, in a nutshell, is a work that outlines important political advice for leaders who are about to take control of their domain, hence the name. Machiavelli deals with the issue of what makes a good leader throughout The Prince. Although it has drawn a lot of criticisms from academics, religious leaders, and other philosophers, The Prince remains an exceptionally interesting piece of work because it is one of the first in its kind to emphasize pragmatism and effective truths over abstract ideals. The advice and qualities it mentions of good leaders are regarded by some to be harsh, cruel, and necessarily tyrannical, hence the term Machiavellian has come to be associated with those qualities. But does it really? According to The Prince, a prospective ruler should be able to understand military matters, be able to understand and distinguish the good and bad in others' advice, be able to maintain a semblance of virtuous qualities, and be able to instill a necessary amount of fear in order to be successful in the pursuit of glory and for the sake of his own survival. Machiavelli explains in detail why each of these qualities are essential and crucial for the princes. A good leader, for Machiavelli, is who is able to maintain his power, ensure his survival whilst achieving glory for himself, that is, the principal aims of leaders at the time. The Prince approaches the issue of effective rule and governance in an extremely pragmatic light and makes a fresh addition to existing philosophy regarding politics, the term which originates from the Greek politikos, meaning relating to citizens, cities, and rule. Machiavelli's suggestion that a good leader should be able to understand military matters is based upon the simple observation that a leader who does not understand such matters is likely to be defeated by enemies, as well as fail to garner respect from his soldiers. How can soldiers trust their leader if the leader is ignorantly sending them to their graves? Another one of Machiavelli's point that leaders should be able to critically examine others' advice is based on the observation that those who fail to distinguish the good and bad of his advisor's words may become the advisor's tool and thus lead to individual ruin. This sounds blindingly obvious, and it is, but this is precisely Machiavelli's specialty. One of his most controversial points that leaders should only keep a semblance of virtuous qualities such as honesty, faith, and trustworthiness, and not be afraid to discard these masks when necessary, is also based on the simple fact that leaders who cling stubbornly to a specific set of ideals are often inflexible and thus fail to deal with crises and challenges effectively. This suggestion favors practicality and pragmatism over ethical and moral guidelines. Leaders are justified in lying to the citizens and committing cruel actions to overcome challenges to their power, should the need arise, whilst maintaining an image of a virtuous figure. After all, if survival is the end goal, then this is one of the most practical course of action. Of course, this does not mean that Machiavelli endorses leaders to lie all the time or only commit cruel deeds. In The Prince, Machiavelli rebukes Agathocles, a man who rose to power through swift execution of possible challenges to his power, stating that one cannot call it virtue to kill one's citizens, betray one's friends, to be without faith, without mercy, without religion. These modes can enable one to acquire empire, but not glory. It is clear that Machiavelli's criteria of a good leader is based on what will realistically prove to be the most effective in governance and maintenance of power, rather than what should or ought to be in idealized forms as suggested by earlier works of philosophy. And while Machiavelli's style and writings in The Prince draw controversy even to this day due to their immoral nature and disregard for virtuous qualities, they enabled a fresh departure from the monopoly of classicist and scholastic political philosophy that dwelled on idealistic aims for rulers. However, it should be noted that Machiavelli dedicated The Prince to one of the members of the Medici family. It should also be noted that Machiavelli had been deprived of political office, arrested, tortured, and banished by the Medici regime after his city, Florence, was defeated. Some scholars of Machiavelli point out that The Prince incorporates a number of conflicting points and courses of action that, if followed closely, could erode or undermine the Medici's power. This is certainly an interesting topic on its own, but since this is a 6-minute video with limited budget, we will not go into it. In Machiavelli's words, "He who neglects what is done for what ought to be done sooner effects his ruin than his preservation." Remember this statement when you watch political debates and presidential campaigns, as the leaders of today no doubt know Machiavelli's words on how to be a good leader. If you found this video insightful and interesting, please share, like, and subscribe. And of course, thank you for watching ClickPhilosophy.